This is The Bearded Dentist, and on today's episode, we will be prepping side-by-side crowns and turning this into this. Thank you to all my subscribers, and if you are new here, I hope to earn yours as well. First, we have to cut off this old crown that has a massive cavity underneath. Removing crowns is my least favorite thing to do in dentistry as it is very tedious, and these ceramic and zirconia crowns like to splinter off and fly everywhere. These splinters can be razor sharp, and it's very important we do not let them get anywhere where they could harm the patient. Also, another reason is we never know what's hiding underneath these crowns. Sometimes it can be a very unfortunate surprise to the patient and myself. Zirconia, this specific crown here, does not allow x-rays to travel through it, so I cannot see anything unless it is below the level of the crown. This process takes quite a while, and this specific crown was very thick on the tongue or lingual side. I start to break through the cheek side, so I feather the burr onto the tooth, so as not to dig into the tooth itself. Now, onto the tongue side. Once it is fully sectioned, I need to use something called a crown remover to get in between each side of the section, twist, and crack and break the bond that is holding the crown to the tooth. Very thick right here. This was very hard to get through, took quite a while. Here's that crown remover, getting in between those, cracking it and breaking it. Alright, now onto that big old metal filling. First we remove all of the top of the tooth. This is called the occlusal table. It is very important at this stage with these metal fillings to have that high volume suction right up against the tooth to reduce the amount of mercury vapor in the air. And we irrigate very heavily as well during this. These large mercury fillings do throw vapor into the air, and this vapor can be breathed in by both the dentist and the patient. However, this is a very, very short exposure to the patient, and typically the only person that ever has any harm from this is actually the dentist if they're replacing and placing these their entire career, which is why this is very important to make sure that we have a lot of irrigation and this high volume suction right up against it. So I'm not breathing it in, and neither is the patient or my assistant. And here we rinse very well also. After we've cleaned up the majority of the old filling and decay, we move to the slow speed, which will remove any damaged hard tissue, and anything that is healthy and strong will remain, as this burr is not hard enough to remove it. This is the most satisfying part to me and my favorite part when removing cavities. Now onto the premolar. We remove the occlusal table again. Then we start to tackle this massive cavity that's on the back side of the tooth. A little bit of water on the camera there, which I did not notice, obviously, because I'm, prepping the tooth. But we didn't really want to, keep stopping to fix the camera here, so we just kept moving. Here we're removing that old buildup that is over an existing root canal. We did send this patient to a specialist called an endodontist to confirm that the root canal was still in good shape and that this patient did not need a retreat. So that's why you will see I'm going very, very deep, and if some of you are worried that I'm going to hit the nerve, there's already a good root canal in there. The crown, not so great. The root canal was stable. So this process really, really upsets the gums. We obviously nick the gums a few times because they're very overgrown into the space. We actually have to remove that hyperplasia or overgrowth of gum tissue cells. And in order to calm these gums down, we're using something called Quickstat, which is an iron-based clotting agent. This is extremely helpful in stopping that bleeding almost instantly. We let that sit, put a little pressure into those areas where it's really, really leaking through that red stuff. Give it a good quick rinse. Then a good once over with a slow speed just to make sure we've got all the bad tissue out of there. And if you can see how little tooth structure is left, there's just enough for us to fix this, and I think we'll have a good prognosis here. And right here I'm checking to make sure there's no soft tooth structure left. Buildups are now placed onto both teeth. This replaces the core structure of the tooth, basically all that stuff that we removed. We remove anything that's not healthy tooth structure, but there's a certain core of that tooth that needs to be replaced, and this is vital for the final crown. Then we cure that with the blue light. Now we prep the axial walls of each tooth. I already removed the occlusal tables because that's very hard to get on camera without water getting everywhere. There will be a poor camera angle for a portion of this. My apologies there. However, just because of the cheek and where I'm sitting and everything, there's really no way for my assistant to get that camera on that side of the tooth. Anyways, we need to remove about 0.6 to 1.2 millimeters of tooth structure around the axial walls, or the circumference of the tooth, evenly in order to get enough thickness, but not too much thickness for our final restoration. The variance in that amount is based on the material we will use for the final. A gold restoration can have very thin walls, while a ceramic must be on the thicker end of that spectrum. These will be done in what's called lithium silicate, which is a very good looking cosmetic but also strong when bonded crown. Here's that kind of rough camera angle I was talking about, a little hard to see there. But I'm getting the cheek side and in between the two teeth there. But it's very important that the thickness of that remain even. So it's not 0.6 to 1.2. It's either 0.6 or 1.2 or somewhere in between, again, depending on what you're using. So we're working with very, very, very small amounts of grace here when it comes to what's considered a good solid crown prep and what will have a good long-lasting final crown restoration and what may not. As you can see, this premolar is rotated slightly, so we will follow its original trajectory of the tooth with our crown prep. Very, very deep here, where that original crown had that huge cavity under there. So what we need to do is we need to go all the way down past where the buildup was, because we do not want to put our crown margin, or where the crown rests on the tooth, we don't want it to rest on a buildup. We want it to rest on the tooth structure. That is absolutely vital. And we need at least, I try to get at least a 0.5 millimeter of tooth structure up the side of the axial wall there, past the buildup for the crowns to sit on. Now we just shore up the rest of these walls. We're getting them nice and even and smooth. When dealing with crown margins, we're looking at microns. Anything above 40-ish microns can be seen and can affect the overall quality and prognosis. So we're really working with a very, very small amount, again, of leeway here when we're doing this. As you can see, the gums are super angry. Obviously, we'll get all that fixed up, and I'm going to show the final preps here in a moment. But just rounding off these corners, again, we do not want sharp corners anywhere because that will concentrate stress and lead to fractures in the final crown. Here are the final preps. This is the molar. I am very happy with these. And I appreciate every one of you watching here today. Please comment below on other content you would like to see from me, whether it's tooth extractions, more crown preps, decay removal, other things like that, even cleanings, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much.